Why sex becomes such a big problem between good men and women in a marriage, ladies, is because of us and the walls we have put up, the ways we use and weaponize sex to crush our husbands and make them small and weak and to take the control in the marriage. Hello, I'm Karyn Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. I'm going to do a Q&A where I am going to answer questions that some of you have submitted to me, and some of them come from, I went through videos around sex, because today's topic is why sex becomes such a big problem in marriage. So I went through some of my past videos on sex and just scrolled through and got some questions from the comments. And today I chose questions from women and women's challenges with either my message and challenges with sex in their marriage. So some of these questions are from women who really want to look at themselves and apply what I teach on the channel. Some of these questions are from some women who are haters, and my message is very upsetting to them. So I wanted to take time to look at both angles of that and answer some questions as it pertains to sex and marriage. So that's the format of our show today. Let's go ahead and dive in of why sex becomes such a big problem in marriage. And I want to remind you guys that my message is for women who are married to good men who resonate with what I teach, that they understand and see in themselves how they emasculate their husbands and how they weaken them and make them small through our woman ways, such as the walls we put up, through withholding things like sex and affection and respect, being controlling, nagging, and the women that relate to, oh my gosh, I have those woman ways. I know that in myself, and you want a way forward and a way to work on yourself to improve and become and evolve into the best version of yourself, and your husband gets the benefit. My message is also for good men who are married and struggle with these dynamics and struggle with their wife's woman ways. And one of the biggest problems between women married to good men and good men married to women, one of the biggest problems we have in marriage is sex. I think that's why the videos I do on sex are so popular, because it's a huge, huge issue. And I have a unique perspective on sex and marriage and why it becomes such a big problem. And the purpose of how I teach about sex, both for good men and for women, is to simplify it and to see the problem with sex and marriage as more pragmatic and logical, and to understand it in a way that simplifies the issue so that we can overcome it. There's a lot of information out there. A gentleman said, my wife and I have been going to a sex therapist and it's not working out real well. And my experience when I was struggling with sex and shut down to sex, withholding it from my husband in the beginning of our marriage, is that I tried to focus on sex as the issue and went down so many wrong paths, got so much misinformation, wasn't dealing with the real issue, which was me, And it got very overwhelming, very complicated, very convoluted, and there was no solution forward. So as I began to be taught by my mentors, David and Peggy, to look at myself and see the issues that I had and the walls I had built up around sex and how I was the problem in my marriage to a very good man and the issue of sex, it actually took all the pressure off and I could overcome it. And then my husband, as a good man, gladly re-engaged and took that journey with me. And so I want to simplify it so that we can overcome it. So simplifying it, why sex becomes such a big problem between good men and women in a marriage, ladies, is because of us and the walls we have put up, the ways we use and weaponize sex to crush our husbands and make them small and weak and to take the control in the marriage. The solution to sex is in our hands by dropping our walls and re-engaging with sex, remembering that we enjoy it and stepping back into it for ourselves and allowing our husbands to get the benefit of that, allowing our marriage to get the benefit of that. It makes it really, really, really simple. And so that's really the framework of where we're going to go with the different questions that I have today, is looking at how as women we are the problem and how we can be the solution. And also educating good men to not buy into the stories and excuses that your wife has and to see the reality of these issues, not to be a victim, but to be able to be grounded in the reality of your marriage and these dynamics that you have with your wife so that you can actually be in camp, take responsibility, as I talk about, and constructively navigate these issues in your marriage so that you're not giving your power away to your wife, so you remain strong and confident in yourself and you can see things for what they are, because it's only when we see the reality of our life, the reality of marriage, the reality of the issues around sex for good men, the reality of your wife, it's only from seeing the truth and the reality that we can actually start to navigate it and solve the issue. So I think it's really interesting. The primary issue around sex and marriage is a woman withholding and disengaging from sex. And I think it's really interesting that if it was flipped the other way, and sex was one of the most important things to a woman in a marriage, as it is for a man in a marriage, if it was flipped the other way and the man withheld sex and stopped wanting sex, women would run and be long gone. But good men, because of their vows, because of their commitment and their integrity and character, they stay and they take it. But as women, we would never do that. It also exposes a really good double standard that one of the most important things to a woman in a marriage is security, whether that's emotional security or financial security, primarily financial security. If our husbands withheld that and we felt that we weren't getting that security, we would be gone. But we withhold sex from our husbands and expect them to stay. And they do, because they're good men. So it's such a double standard and really an issue that as women we need to look at, because as I said, the power to solve this and to move forward is in our hands. So I want to get into the first question that I have. And this question is from a woman who's very genuine and very much wants a solution and a path to solve what she has asked. And as I go through these questions, I haven't talked to these women. I don't know the specifics of their relationship. I don't know the specifics of their husbands and their marriage and what's been going on. So I'm answering these questions in the framework of the principles I teach on the channel, assuming that these women are married to good men and that they have their woman ways in play in the marriage so that we can all learn from these very common issues. And that's the framework of which I'm going to be teaching and answering these questions. So again, haven't talked to these women, just teaching through my perspective and how I help women and good men in marriage around sex. So the first question is, I love sex. Good for you. She knows she loves sex. That's step one for us as women to overcome our issues. I love sex, but I always feel exhausted emotionally and find it hard to even be turned on. I'm always in stress mode all day due to work and children and taking care of the home. And I want to always be ready and want sex. How would I navigate that? So good to this woman. That's a genuine question. She wants to overcome this. So she's one of the women that's open-minded and able to see herself in what I teach on the channel. And so what's really important for us to understand as women, when we feel exhausted emotionally, we're in stress mode all day, what we have to see that also then affects our relationship with sex and our relationship with our husbands is that we are running on empty. We get emotionally exhausted and overwhelmed and burdened and resentful of our responsibilities as women when we are running on empty, putting ourselves last, and not taking any time to fill our cups. That's why you feel exhausted and feel like you have nothing left at the end of the day or at other times during the week where you might engage with sex with your husband. Is because you're not taking any time for yourself to recharge so that you can be emotionally stable and in control of your emotional state and have plenty of energy for your life and your responsibilities as a mother and as a wife. So this woman, I can see in her question, she's really trying to be a good wife and a good mom and do well. But the problem is she's not taking that time to fill her cup. What happens when we run on empty and we put ourselves last is our internal emotional state is exhausted, very much one of a victim and feeling burdened and resentful of our responsibilities. We have a lack of clarity. We feel taken advantage of. We often put ourselves last on purpose as women so that we are running on empty, and then we can play the martyr of just, poor me, I have all this on my plate, no one's helping me, I'm doing everything for everyone, when is someone going to step in and do something for me? And it's a way for us to get attention. It's a way for us to feel sorry for ourselves, and in that we create the belief and victim story that we have it really hard and that we can't handle our lives. And from that place, we are very, very much in camp victim. And first step is we have to see we're doing that to ourselves by not taking the time to recharge and purposely taking on too many commitments, getting really busy in our lives so that we can play the martyr, we can feel sorry for ourselves, and then we can pull others in and get attention for how hard we have it. So in this question, I want you to know that I did consult with both of my mentors, David and Peggy. And Peggy is a mom. Her 2 daughters are grown. But for a lot of her raising her daughters, she was a single mother. And so I asked her, whenever there's questions that involve kids, I consult with my mentors because, as you guys know, I don't have children. And so I asked Peggy, I said, was it hard for you? And Peggy had a very demanding job. Her daughters were involved with a lot of extracurricular activities. She had a full life, working, single mom. And she said, it wasn't, because Peggy is a woman that really is more geared towards working hard and taking responsibility. And she said, I just did what I needed to do and enjoyed it and stepped up to the plate of the choices I had made and the responsibilities that I had. So as women, we have to stop making being a mom and working and being married difficult and understand that millions of people work and have children and have all the responsibilities that come with that. We have to be willing to look in our lives, no matter what choices we've made, no matter what responsibilities and commitments we have made in our lives, We have to look at the choices we've made and take responsibility for them and understand it's a choice if we want to see our lives and our circumstances as hard, or if we want to put our best foot forward. Again, step up to the plate, make the best of it, focus on the positive, and do the best that we can. And in that, when we're there for ourselves, and especially for us as women, and it's important for men as well, taking time throughout the week to recharge and do things that we enjoy, that fill our cup and make us feel good about ourselves, then we have plenty of energy and feel good about ourselves to be able to step up to our responsibilities. And then it's not hard. It doesn't mean there aren't challenges and there aren't ups and downs. But when you're taking care of yourself and have a full cup, then you have plenty of energy for the responsibilities you've made. It really is what I talk about all the time. Do we want to be in camp victim? And poor me, look how hard my life is and what's happened? Or do we want to live in camp take responsibility? I am where I am based on my choices and decisions, not what has happened to me. And from that place, we can navigate and make the best of our lives, and it doesn't have to be hard. And that applies to any life circumstance or any choices that we have made in life. The key is living in camp take responsibility and recognizing for women who are mothers and work and married, you chose to have children, you chose to be married, you chose to work. So taking responsibility for those choices and making the best of them, and stop making it hard. And the key to that is making sure you're taking time for yourself to do things you enjoy. It doesn't have to be long. Maybe 15 minutes a day, which means 15 minutes less of scrolling on your phone and one less episode of your favorite show on Netflix, and taking that time to actually do something that recharges you, that you enjoy, and having interests and hobbies so that you have a full cup. And then you will have plenty of time for yourself and plenty of energy to have sex and be ready for sex. As this woman said, how would I navigate? I always want to be ready and want sex. Have a full cup. Make sure you're taking time for yourself throughout the week to do things you enjoy. And this is important, what I just spoke about in answering this question. This is important for good men to know, so that one of the things that good men are very susceptible to is buying in and getting sucked into their wives' stories of how hard they have it. And so you want to take a step back and know that your wife made choices, and it's up to her whether she wants them to be hard or not. So don't feel sorry for her and get caught in her story. You can have empathy. You can see what she's doing to herself and camp victim, but don't get sucked into that story. If she takes time for herself, and like I said, it doesn't have to be long, but she takes time for herself to do things she truly enjoys that recharges her, she'll have plenty of energy for her life and responsibilities, which includes sex. So thank you so much to this woman for your question, and good for you to want to work on this and want a way forward and to be able to see yourself and the things that I teach on the channel. That's one of those women that's open to my message and wants to work on these things. So we're going to get into the second question. And I found this question on one of my videos. It was a live video I did a while back on the duties of a wife in bed. So you can go check that out. And in that video, I talk about how as women, it's our responsibility that if an orgasm is important to us, that we need to know our own bodies, and it's our responsibility to get ourselves there and to guide our husbands in a loving, kind way to help us get there. So this woman says, how can you tell women they do not need to have an orgasm when they have sex? ? If he's going to have an orgasm, then so am I. And also, foreplay is important. My husband can be ready for intercourse in 20 seconds. I need at least 10 or 15 minutes to be ready. Otherwise, it is painful. So that's the question I pulled from that. And again, just a reminder, I haven't spoken to this woman. So I'm just using this as a discussion point, as a talking point. I don't know the details, but sharing this with other women who maybe had the same reaction when I shared that. So given that the way that most women are, I'm responding as if she's in her woman ways, and also assuming that she's with a good man. So I think it's important to know, I've found many different statistics and percentages of women who struggle to have an orgasm. And from the different articles I've read and looked at, it looks like about 50 to 65% of women have difficulty reaching an orgasm with a partner. And while this women and other women might feel orgasms are important and foreplay is important, I want women to know who are struggling and feeling overwhelmed with the issues and challenges they have with sex. And something that was critical to me to begin to drop my walls and overcome the issues is that sex is simple. Sex is simple. And if you are a woman who has a difficulty reaching orgasm or feels awkward and uncomfortable and anxious in foreplay, I want you to know you don't need those things. If they're important to you and you want to learn and get to know your body and be able to have an orgasm more easily, you want to give that to yourself and show yourself that you are important to you. If you enjoy foreplay, it's up to you to know what you like and guide your husband in that. But I want you to know we don't need those things. If you're anxious and overwhelmed or a big victim around those issues in the bedroom, you want to know we don't need those things to enjoy sex. Especially if you've been walled off, withdrawn, shut down, withholding sex from your husband. Adding those things into the mix to overcome the issues and problems of sex in a marriage are just going to overwhelm you and shut you down more. So embrace that sex is simple. That if you want, as a woman, you can be ready in 20 seconds too. You can be ready in less than 20 seconds if you want. Because what I teach is it's just a choice. When we remember that we enjoy sex and that when we think back to the beginning of when we were dating our husbands or relationships before him, we had fun in sex, we enjoyed it, and it's really important to know we were made with all the right parts to enjoy sex and for it to be pleasurable. So when you know that, it's really just a quick choice that we can make to be ready to step into sex and have fun and enjoy it. If you decide you do like foreplay and you do want an orgasm, again, it's our responsibility. We have to know ourselves and what we enjoy and what we like, which most women, if not all women, do not know and understand about themselves. We have always had sex for the wrong reasons with a hidden agenda. We've had sex for the man and put on a show of who we thought we needed to be for the man. And we never slowed down to get to know our bodies. And we never slowed down to understand what we enjoy and what we like for ourselves. That is our responsibility. And we only think that we should have an orgasm and get there easily, which you can learn to do that. It takes opening up emotionally to sex, but we only think we should have an orgasm because our husband and men can have one in general very quickly. We're wired differently. So unless the other point in this that I want to address is that this woman says if she doesn't have 10 to 15 minutes of foreplay, sex is painful. So I want to share a different perspective on that of why sex is painful for us as women, because from my perspective and what I teach, unless you have a physical disorder, the pain we experience in sex is emotional. That how shut down we are to sex, the beliefs and stories we have created around sex, and also how deeply we don't feel good about ourselves, not how we look, not our physical appearance, but truly who we are as women and people. Sex is a mirror that shakes up those painful feelings we have about ourselves and the painful beliefs and heartbreak and hurt we hold on to around sex, that then sex is a mirror that shows and brings up that emotional pain that presents as physical pain. The pain we have in sex as women, if we do not have a physical disorder, is pain that we create from suppressed emotions. That's the pain that we experience if we don't have a physical disorder. To me, that was very good news, because it meant as I began to work on feeling good about myself and dropping my walls around sex for me, because if you try to do it for your husband, you're going to feel resentful and be a victim, and it's not going to work. That's why I teach we have to do these things for ourselves, not to be selfish. It's actually the opposite. When I can learn to drop my walls and open back up to sex for me, then I actually move into camp take responsibility. And then I can share that openly with my husband and give him the benefit of the work I do on myself as a woman with sex. And in that, as we drop our walls, we learn to feel good about ourselves. We learn to make ourselves important to us. We resolve those suppressed, painful feelings, and the pain around sex disappears, which is such a simpler, easier path that actually works than trying to work on the physical symptom that is just the symptom. It's not the cause. The cause is our suppressed emotional state. So in this question, assuming this is a woman who's in her woman ways, as I teach, she's emasculating her husband with sex by making him responsible to give her the experience that she wants in bed, and that he's responsible to get her warmed up and ready so sex isn't painful, and putting the pressure and burden on him to give her an orgasm without knowing herself. Because that's what we do as women and wives in our experience of sex. So in discussing these questions yesterday with David and Peggy and getting ready for the live show, David had a really, really funny analogy that I must share. And he asked me, he said, Karyn, who's your favorite male celebrity that you've thought is just really hot? And mine has always been Ryan Gosling. And he said, so imagine Ryan Gosling walks in. How long do you think it would take for you to be ready? So imagine that, ladies. Think of your favorite Hollywood hunk. And how long would it take you if he walked into a room? We'd be ready in seconds. We'd be ready in seconds. So we wouldn't need to be warmed up. And that's how we can know saying that we need to be warmed up is just a story. And it doesn't have to be that way. It makes it so much simpler. And we can be ready in seconds without our favorite Hollywood hunk with our husbands by doing the work on ourselves to open up to sex and feel good about ourselves by making it simple and taking away all the things that add a lot of pressure and overwhelm and just create our victim story around sex in our marriages. So I'm going to move now to the next question. Question number 3. So it's okay for men to not want sex, but it's not okay when women don't want it? That seems a bit toxic to me, as if a man's reasons are more important than a woman's. So this was from the video I did not too long ago on why your husband stopped wanting sex. So the reason that it's okay for good men to stop wanting sex in their marriage is because there's 2 different reasons. It's a very, very different reason why as women we stop wanting sex with our husbands as good men. Very different reason. It's because we have weaponized sex and we're withholding sex to weaken them and emasculate them. We have a lot of sex before getting married to hook them and get married. Then we get the marriage, we get what we want, and sex stops. And then we make our husbands wrong and bad for being men, and that they still want sex, and we think they're Neanderthals. And I can't tell you the comments I have read from men on the videos, or the men who have shared with me and told me My wife thinks there's something wrong with me, that all I ever think about is sex, because I would like sex a reasonable amount as a married couple. That's how we then weaponize sex against our husbands, make them wrong and bad for being men who enjoy and want sex. That's another really important point. We all knew as women getting married that sex is important to men, and men like sex and think about sex a lot. And we think that's just supposed to go away after we get married. That makes no sense. So the reasons are very, very different. Men stop having sex because they've been emasculated and we've withheld it from them, and they lose emotional attraction to us in the ways that we treat them in the marriage. You can go check out why some men stop wanting sex. I think this is a lesser problem than the other, which is us as women stop wanting sex. So in short, the two different reasons: women stop wanting sex because we're weaponizing sex. Men stop wanting sex because it's a response to the weaponization of sex and the emasculation. It's that simple. That's why it's okay. It's a reasonable and understandable response. So that's my answer to that question. So I'm going to go to the next one. And this one isn't about sex, but I thought this was a really, really important question to answer. It's one that I get often from women. And the question is, this is the fourth question: is it possible for my husband to come back from deep emasculation if I apply all the tips you've given us as women? If so, how long would it usually take for that to happen, for him to come back from deep emasculation? So good for this woman. This woman should be really, really proud of herself to see herself as deeply emasculating her husband, and then have the courage to ask her question and to see herself in what I teach on the channel. So this husband is very blessed and very lucky to have a woman who wants to look at herself and wants to change. She's taken the red pill. Remember, part of my channel's title is the red pill for women. She's been red pilled and she's open to changing. So this man, her husband, has hit the jackpot, because I teach good men there's 4 outcomes. There's 4 outcomes of either introducing my videos to your wife, taking back your power and rebuilding your strength and confidence, and no longer giving her the power to be able to emasculate you and weaken you. There's 4 outcomes. Only one of those outcomes is a woman actually willing to look at herself and step up and change and stop the emasculating behaviors. Only one, which is 25%. So this woman falls in that 25%. The other 3 outcomes are a woman not changing and either pulling away and leaving, or that's the second outcome. The third outcome is a man works on himself, rocks the boat in his marriage to try to help wake his wife up. She doesn't change. She's upset, and he decides, I don't want to stay in a marriage with a woman who treats me this way, and he chooses to leave. That's the third outcome. Or the fourth outcome: his wife doesn't change, but because of his values and what's important to him and his vows and his commitment, he chooses to stay, focus on the good things, accept his wife, use her as his greatest teacher, and navigate the marriage the best he can without giving his power away to be emasculated by his wife. Those are the 4 outcomes. And this woman is in the first outcome. She wants to change. So what women with a similar question need to know is that a good man is always right there waiting for you. He is always right there waiting for you to change and come around if the relationship is not too far gone. That's one side of the coin. So if you change and you begin to see yourself and stop the emasculating behaviors and learn to be happy in yourself and bring that into the marriage and share that with your husband, he will be right there waiting for you and just relieved. And you will begin to have what I talk about, the dance, which is a tolerance of each other, because you're not going to be perfect. And some woman ways are going to be more difficult to change than others because you're more ingrained in them. And some are going to be much easier to let go of and outgrow. And you and your husband will have a dance, being able to tolerate and accept each other and your differences as men and women, and have that dance very quickly. That's one side of the coin. Because good men, in a good way, have short memories. They do not keep a Rolodex of hurts and wrongs as we do as women. So as we begin to change, they're just right there waiting for us. And over time, they forget how we used to be. That's what has happened for Adam and I in our marriage. He doesn't remember. And he'll say that, like, I'll say, gosh, you remember when? I don't do that anymore. But as I had changed and things were going so much better, I would say sometimes, oh gosh, remember how cold I used to be? And he's always like, not really. So they have short memories. They don't keep a Rolodex. In this case, this woman is saying there is deep emasculation. And again, good for her to be honest and take responsibility for herself. So if the other side of the coin is if it's gone on too long and there is deep emasculation, and say you promised you would change things or you would work on things and you never did and you never changed and you just kept showing up in these woman ways, it's going to take time for your husband to come back from that deep emasculation because he doesn't trust you. So even though you're changing and applying the tips I've given to women through my videos and what I teach, and you're showing up better and really committed to changing, you want to be grounded in knowing you're doing that for yourself and to know you are trying. But your husband, if it has gone on too long and the emasculation has been deep, as this woman said in her question, it's going to take longer because he doesn't trust you and he doesn't trust the changes. We don't have integrity with our word as women. We make empty promises of how we are going to change, what we're going to do differently all the time. So we can only give those empty promises and then have a total lack of follow through for so long before our husbands don't trust us. And then it's like, oh, she's just going to go right back. So I'm not going to hold my breath and actually think she's going to change. So it's going to take consistency. It's going to take integrity and follow through. And that's your challenge as a woman, is to keep going. Even if your husband isn't responding positively yet to your changes, you stay true to yourself and have integrity to keep following through, to keep changing, even when he still doesn't trust you. And eventually, over time, he will trust the changes because you've had integrity and character to follow through. Good men are very forgiving. They are not ones in general to hold grudges and hold on to hurts. It's only when it's gone on for so long and we haven't had integrity that they hold on to that hurt. But again, if you're consistent and you have the follow through, eventually he will trust you. Also, I want to make a note to good men here too. If your wife is genuine, if you've shared my videos and she's genuinely open to them and sees herself and she's trying to make changes, you want to know she's not going to be perfect, and she's never going to relate to you and respond and have the same level of integrity and character that you do as a good man. She's still going to be a woman, and building the skill set and building the muscle, because it's not natural to us to live and can't take responsibility and have integrity and character. It's not something we've ever even thought about. So what you want to focus on is the progress, and that she is trying, and that you hit the jackpot, that you have a wife and a woman who is willing and open to change and look at herself in these ways. Don't focus on the ways she's still stumbling in the areas she's not changing, because that will keep you in camp victim. You want to focus on the progress and the fact she's willing to look at herself and the progress she is making, and understanding we really truly do live in two different realities as men and women. We do. So she's never, just as I teach women, your husband's never going to relate to you and think in the ways that you think as a woman. And he's never going to fully understand you as a woman. He can't, because he's not a woman. Good men also need to know that your wife is never going to relate and respond as you do as a man. Some good men think she should just see it and make the changes because that's how you're wired as a good man. But that's not how women are wired. So you want to have patience, and you want to focus on the good things and the progress, so that you don't get stuck in camp victim and you guys can have that dance together. So thank you for that question. It was a great question. All right. I think I'll have time for one more. So the last one's from a hater. And the question is, this bee is spreading lies about women. Every time we have sex, we feel like we are giving another piece of ourselves away. Who made this up? She has no right to speak on behalf of women. After my wedding, I want sex more than before. Lies, lies, lies. I wonder what her reason is to want to spread all these lies. So thank you for the comment. And here's the thing. It is very, very common. And I have heard this so many times. I've seen it in other comments on the videos. I've heard this over the last decade of working with women. It is very, very common that as women, the very first question that I answered, when we're running on empty and we have nothing left to give at the end of the day, we're not taking care of ourselves. We do perceive having sex as we're giving another piece of ourselves away that we do not have to give. And the reason we feel that way as women is that we feel very empty inside, because we are not taking care of ourselves. We're disconnected from ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't like ourselves because of how we show up, the behaviors we haven't been able to change, that we live in camp victim around, which makes us feel very bad about ourselves. There's no connection, which creates that deep emptiness we feel. So many women feel that they have nothing left to give at the end of the day. So when they have sex, they do feel like they're just giving another piece of themselves. Men have also shared with me that their wives have actually told them that. Actually said the words, I just have nothing left to give you. And will actually tell their husbands that. And then they have shared that with me. And that's the perspective we live in as victims, as women, because we think the man is constantly wanting something from us when it comes to sex, and we have nothing in ourselves to give them. So we feel resentful and burdened by sex. And that's why if a woman is still having sex, even when she's running on empty and feels she has nothing left to give, that's why many men suffer from starfish sex in bed, where it's just wife just laying there, just get it over with if you're going to do it. That's where that comes from. It's because we live in camp victim. We're not giving anything to ourselves. We're empty. And then that's why good men end up with a starfish in bed. So say this woman who made this comment really did want more sex after her wedding. Well, also have to know that the reason that we want more sex, having a high sex drive as women, is a myth. There's always a hidden agenda. We have a hidden agenda of why we want a lot of sex in marriage from our husbands. So I thought it'd be helpful to look at 3 reasons Some women want more sex after getting married, which is very, very rare. Just read through the comments on my videos. Very, very rare. But 3 reasons some women want more sex. Number 1, to stay in control of their husbands, to make sure he doesn't leave and he doesn't stray, and have her hooks in him. So it's a method, an ulterior motive of control. The second reason some women might want more sex after getting married. Number 2, trying to get pregnant. And then once she gets pregnant, it'll stop. And the third reason some women want more sex after marriage, it's another method of emasculation so that he feels inadequate in the bedroom. It's another way she emasculates him and makes him feel inadequate in the bedroom, because she'll say, I want more sex than you. What's wrong with you that you don't want sex as much as I want it? You're a man. You should always want it. So it's just another tactic of emasculation. I do always like to give a little solution for women and men around these issues around sex. Women, stop it. Just stop it. We all enjoy sex. As I mentioned earlier, we're made with all the right parts. So if you married a good man, it is a part of your responsibility to have sex. Sex is a part of a healthy relationship. It is a part of a healthy marriage, is to have sex. It's a wonderful, nice experience we get to share with one person. And it's a way we create intimacy in the marriage and enjoy a very simple, pleasurable act that we always feel better afterwards. I always feel better about myself. I feel connected to myself. I feel connected to my husband when I have sex. And the solution is very simple. You do not have to work on sex. It's working on yourself to have a healthy relationship with yourself and feel good about yourself and who you are. And if you feel good about yourself, you're going to want to do the things that make you feel good about yourself, like upholding your commitment and responsibility in your marriage to have sex and enjoy it for yourself and give your husband the benefit of that. We never have sex and think, man, I wish I hadn't done that. No, we always feel better about ourselves and we feel more connected to ourselves and to our husbands. So the solution is working on yourself to be happy and have a healthy relationship with yourself. Men, you want to know, as I always say, you did not marry the wrong woman. You married a woman. Look through the comments of how many men are struggling with issues in their marriage, such as lack of sex, sexless marriage, starfish sex, their wives checked out with sex, getting sex a few times a year, maybe once a month. So you want to see this as a very common, normal issue. It doesn't mean that it isn't incredibly hurtful, but you have to learn to do the things you enjoy in your life to make sure you're filling your tank and recharging, so you have the emotional resilience. If you're choosing to stay in your marriage, you have to have the emotional resilience to navigate these issues. It's the reality of marriage and the common problems that there are. And if she's not having sex with you, it's because she doesn't feel the responsibility of sex and the commitment she made in the marriage. And she's withdrawn. There is very, very, very little you can do to get her to re-engage, because it's a switch she has turned off. And there's nothing you are going to be able to do to turn that switch back on, other than working on yourself to take back your power, to be strong and confident in yourself, and to stand up to her in a responsible, respectful way. That's the best fight you have for her to re-engage, but it's up to her to turn her switch back on. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.